Hi, I'm Jen Barney. I'm the owner of Meringue Bakery, and I'm also Food Network's Season 4 Holiday Baking Champion. And my husband and I are just on our way back home. We were in Rochester, Minnesota, and we're setting up for the unveiled Rochester Wedding Expo wedding show. And we're going to come back tomorrow. We're going to see all of the couples, but it's got me thinking about what I want all of these couples to know if I were to have a couple minutes to talk with them. Because in these expos, it's just really quick. You know, people come into your booth and they exit within a matter of 30 seconds usually. But I was thinking about the top 5 tips that I can give people when they're thinking about booking their wedding cakes. You know, our bakery, Meringue Bakery, really specializes in making these beautiful wedding cakes for couples. And every day I correspond with brides and with couples about making their wedding cake. So here are some things, my Jen Barney's top 5 tips on things that you should think about when you are in the market for a wedding cake. The first thing that you should know is that you should really understand what your budget is. Now, your budget is going to determine the type of wedding dessert that you can get, and it's also going to determine who can provide your wedding cake, because some bakers are more expensive than others. You'd be so surprised how many people come into my bakery and they do not understand what their budget is. They come in, they try cake, and when I go over pricing with them, the couple, they have never talked about their budget before, and it just really surprises me, because I feel like that's such a cornerstone question that people should be asking right away before they actually go to meet with somebody like me. Another thing to think about with budget is if you have a family member who's contributing to your wedding cake, you really need to talk with them about what their budgetary limits are before you go into a cake venue. I always find, as a cake person, I feel like part of my job is feeling people out on how much they can afford, and where they stand with what kinds of desserts they want to get and what they can afford to get. And it always surprises me when, you know, their aunt is paying for the wedding cake and they have never asked the aunt how much money she wants to spend on the wedding cake, or how much money she has to spend. You know, I think sometimes maybe it's just a generational thing, but sometimes people just don't even understand how much wedding desserts can cost. And it's totally across the board. I mean, in Wisconsin, I think the average, it's been a couple years since I looked at the statistics, but the last time I looked, the average cost is $500 for a wedding cake. Well, what does that mean? Because how many people, your number one contributing cost factor to having a wedding cake is what your guest count is, right? Because the more people you have, the more people you have to buy cake for. And $500 for a 300-person wedding is an incredibly cheap price point. But $500 for a 75-person wedding, that's a really generous budget to work with. So, you know, if your mom or your parents or your dad, whoever's picking up the tab, you really need to have a conversation with them and ask them what they feel comfortable with paying. Because as generous as they are, the last thing I would ever want for anybody is to walk away from my bakery feeling uncomfortable with the price tag, because nobody wants that. I know that I hate going shopping, and you know, like that feeling you get when you spend too much money, and you know you spend too much money, and then you try to like figure out how you're gonna like make up for that money with your budget. And I never want people to feel that way when they come into the bakery. So just please understand what your budget is. You don't have to have it figured out to the exact cent, but just have a general, you know, if it's $600, $800, or, you know, just whatever you feel comfortable with, know that number, and talk to talk to the cake decorator about that in your consultation, because you know what, their job is to make sure that you're a happy client. And when you have your budget is set in stone, or an idea of what you need to, you know, like your price point that you need to stay in touch with, they're going to serve you better, because then they know what types of ideas to start throwing at you, because then they won't throw the, you know, they'll know what to avoid, that's going to cost a lot of money, and then they'll know what you can afford. So that's number 1. Number 2 is keep your tasting tight and concise. Don't be inviting your whole family to a tasting. You know, the more opinions that you have in a room, the more you have to listen to people and their opinions in a room. And sometimes when you have a cake, you know, I don't care I don't care what my brother-in-law has to say about the flavor of the cake. I mean, too many people, too many opinions. I would say keep it as tight as possible. So if that means it's just the couple that's coming in, or obviously if somebody's contributing, a family member, they should also be included in the tasting. And maybe one bridal party member, but I would say 4 is a fantastic number. When it starts creeping up to like 6, it's too many people's opinions. And I understand if both sides want to come to a tasting. We do several tastings where there's tons of people. Well, I say tons, but when you start getting to 6 or 7 people, I do feel like it's harder for me to zone in on the couple when there's just so many people around. And as a cake provider, I do feel like when those consultations are like that, I do feel like I have to be entertaining the whole group, and I'm not focusing in on the couple, and sometimes that can be distracting for me as well, and I feel like it's also distracting for the couple. So keep it small. What I do think is kind of cool is if you do decide to pick, if you have your top couple flavors that you really love when you're at a consultation, I always recommend to people that they then go and buy that cake, like they order a 6-inch cake, and then they bring it to the next family gathering. And you can share that particular flavor with your whole family ahead of time, and then they get to try the cake, and then they can have an opinion. But do it after you've picked the flavor, and do it at somebody's birthday or at the next family holiday. So this is my advice. Take it for what it's worth. My tip for number 3 is do your research on who provides. Every area has. I know in the La Crosse area, I can probably list off 10 people that provide wedding cakes, and we all have our niches, and we're all good at what we do within the realm of what our ingredients are and our space. And I do feel like do your research, spend a half an hour, look online. My best tip I can give you for doing your research is usually you start with your venue. That's the first place that you go to book. Ask your venue who provides the best cakes, and if you're looking at somebody specific, ask them about the specific bakery that you're looking at, or the specific person that you're looking at, because they're going to be the ones that can tell you if a wedding cake provider brings in a cake that was frozen one time, or if a cake that leaned one time. Those are the people that see these types of events every single day, and they can tell you the behind the scenes about what bakeries are providing some really cool cakes, or that the finished product looked like what the actual bride or the couple had ordered. So you just ask your vendor first, and then go on the internet, do your research, spend 30 minutes, because you never know, maybe somebody might pop up that you had never thought about, and it's just worth it. And word of mouth in our industry is huge too, so you can always ask around. You should find somebody that matches the style of your wedding and the budgetary needs of your wedding, and also the personality, because you have to work with these people depends on how early you book out, but you're working alongside, at least I know with my brides, I talk to them throughout the whole process. Probably every couple months we touch base, and as counts change and as their design changes, and as their needs change, if somebody has an allergy that they have to add a gluten-free cake at the end, I'm here for them, and you want to make sure that it's a great relationship and you feel good about the pairing, because people have different personalities, and sometimes you just feel a better fit with somebody. And so do your research, please. Here's another thing too, when you're doing your research. So my tip number 4 is pick a wedding cake vendor that has at least 5 years of experience. Now here's the deal. Now we all know the people that are just starting out, and they might be a great option, especially if you have a low budget and you want something unique. Those are the types of people that usually are a little bit more creative, or not creative, but they're a little bit more generous with if you want this crazy idea on a low budget. They could be a good provider for that. But I can honestly say, as somebody who's been doing this for over 10 years, there are tricks of the trade that you pick up, and a lot of it has to do with deliveries and how to be smart with doing deliveries, because you can make the most beautiful cake in the world, but if you're not smart about how you deliver, and the type of box and the refrigeration, and there's all these things that go into a cake, and you learn through the years and through your experience. And I do have to say that my cakes are better than when I was first starting out, and that's just a very honest statement. My cakes are better even now than they were 5 years ago. So, and I think it has a lot to do with just the experience. I have a really close relationship with a lot of the venues, and I understand where the cakes are going and the types of venues and where the location is. And oh gosh, I mean, we've troubleshooted every single cake. Well, I shouldn't say that. Cross your fingers, right? Knock on wood. But I do feel like we troubleshoot problems all the time when we do deliveries. I mean, it can be down to a cake's at a pub table and the pub table is not level, and you got this 4-tier cake on a surface that's not level, which happens often, and you wouldn't think that would happen, but it does. Or it's an outdoor wedding and it's really hot outside, and how do you troubleshoot that problem? And we've been through it, and I know how to deal with these problems, and I do feel like inexperienced bakers don't know how to do that. So take it for what it's worth. You know what? If your cousin just started doing wedding cakes and you want that person to do your wedding, by all means do that. But then understand too that cut them some slack if the cake final product isn't what you think it's going to be, because they don't have that experience to deliver an exceptional product in the end. So just keep that in mind. And for my fifth and final tip, have fun with your flavors. People come into these tastings that I have, and one of the top comments I hear is, well, I don't know, you have to be safe because people don't know what type of flavors to pick, and Martha might not like lemon, and I mean, all these different, I hear it all. But what I always tell people is, pick maybe one flavor that's safe, that's a universal flavor that people feel comfortable with, but have fun. Part of having a wedding is giving your guests a unique experience, and a lot of that can be with your flavor choices. And I have to say, I really love when my clients pick flavors that are unique to their heritage, to the season of their wedding, and to the look and the feel of their wedding, because you want to give your guests a memorable dessert experience, and you can do that through flavor. For example, this past year, we've done lots of different weddings that have chosen like a lavender blackberry cake. We just had a couple who is Mediterranean, and they went with an olive oil cake with honey buttercream and a Meyer lemon curd. I mean, there's all these different ways, and those are just two small, quick examples that I can think of off the top of my head. But enjoy your tasting experience and really challenge your cake decorator to come up with something unusual for your guests, because I really genuinely believe that they will appreciate it, and it'll be a topic of conversation around the table when they're trying their dessert on your wedding day. Well, thank you so much for listening and for keeping me company while we're making our drive back from Rochester, Minnesota to La Crosse, Wisconsin. Once again, my name is Jen Barney. I'm the owner of Meringue Bakery, and I've been baking for a long time, and I'm just so happy that you're here to listen to me talk about my advice. Thank you so much.